Next, I got Mark Allen. Mark Allen is from Trumbull, off of Trumbull Avenue, and down off Trumbull, down Canfield, and I think that street that his mom stayed on, where he grew up at, I think it's called Commonwealth, but I'm not certain on it. It's one street over from Trumbull, if you're going down Canfield. But anyways, he's from there, and I didn't meet him on Trumbull Avenue. I met him on Otis Military in Detroit, Michigan. And he was a cool dude. And we used to party at his place, stuff like that, or we'd hang out on the, streets and party, or, whatever we was doing, throwing horseshoes, barbecuing, whatever the case may be. When he came to the neighborhood, everybody embraced him because he was a good dude. Everybody liked him. And then as we got to, know him, then he told us, he's from Trumbull. And it was kind of like a small world because so was we, And, but anyways, he had this word that he tripped me out with. Every time that you ask him does he want to do something? Like, hey, you want to go to the liquor store with me? Or, hey, you want to do this, you want to do that, whatever. His famous word was, I ain't bashful. Let's do it. That's what he said all the time. And I got a kick out of that because, once somebody asked him something, to do something or go somewhere or whatever, he would just straight up say, I ain't bashful. Let's do it, And Mark was a good dude. And, he lived on Hammond in a downstairs apartment. And we had many parties in his apartment. And also we hung out with other friends and stuff like that. And but me and him had a lot of stories together and stuff like that. I remember one time we had a party at his house, and a whole bunch of people there from the neighborhood. Everybody knowed everybody. But, it was a party, and everybody was just going to crash at his place. So I'm hooked up with this girl, and me and her's got the couch. And then there's some people in a couple of chairs in the living room. Then a lot of people's on the living room floor, and it's real late night. Everybody's passed out. And then, things happen, and then she had an issue on the couch. And so after that, she was like, I was like, what you want me to do with the couch? And then she was like, flip the cushions over. And I was like, all right. So I did that. And then later on, everybody went home the next day. And then later I came over to see Mark. And he was like, hey, man, he was like, can you take me to pick up a couch from my mom, and she's going to give me some towels and all that stuff? And I was like, yeah, man, I can do that. And he was like, hey, do you know what happened to my couch? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, somebody messed my couch up, and then they flipped the cushions over, and I thought somebody died on my couch. And then I started laughing. And then he was like, "You ain't going to tell me even if you knew, are you?" And I said, "I'll tell you when the Titanic rises." And at that point, I knew what happened to his couch. But anyway, that was an incident we had at his house. That's just one incident, but he wasn't worried about it. You know what I mean? He was just wondering what happened. And so I was like, "Yeah, I could take you to get a couch and stuff like that." So we did that, and but that was just one incident of many that happened. You know, so but Mark, he's going to be, he's well missed too, and we had a lot of good times, a lot of parties, a lot of stuff we did, and I had talked about this on a previous video of mine, and Mark's just was a good dude, and he's well missed, and thought about often. Next, you got Dan. Dan was the owner of Big D's Bar. And Big D's Bar was located on Livernois and Otis. And this was the owner of the bar, but he was a good person too. We got to know him really good. Actually, my sister and her first husband, they actually had their wedding their wedding party at Big D's Bar. And we had a good time there, and that's when we really got acquainted with Dan. But Dan was actually our landlord, because behind Big D's Bar above Big D's Bar is 2 apartments. Then behind it is like a house, but it's connected to the bar. And then it has a garage, But he's done favors for me in the past. And then me and a friend of mine has did favors for him and his barmaid in the past. And but anyways, he had this 69 Cadillac parked out the back door of the bar, which is behind the house that's connected to the bar. And it's a gravel parking lot. And he had this gold Cadillac, 69 Cadillac. All 4 tires was flat and had been sitting there for a few years. And he was asking me, did I know somebody that can actually try to get the thing running, because he had parked it there and just let it sit and got him another car, and he didn't know if it would ever run again or not, And I said, yeah, I know just a guy to get. So I actually got my stepdad at the time, and he was the dude, well, me and him actually, because I helped him. Me and him actually, got the car running, and actually the tires took air and they aired up. All the tires aired up. The tires just evaporated out from sitting so long. And then, we did all the things you need to do to a car when it sits for a long time. Like changing spark plugs, change the oil, put new wires on, put a new battery in it. This is all the stuff that Dan had bought to get this Cadillac going. But once we got all that Cadillac fired right up like a brand new one. And he was really impressed because he didn't know nothing about cars, but he didn't think it would ever run again. Just basically just because he let it sit for a long time, and all four tires, the air just left the tires where it sat so long. So I don't know exactly how long it sat, but he said it was sitting there for a long time. And but we ended up getting that going. And Dan was a real good dude. And like I said, he was our landlord too. And he had a nice little establishment there, and and stuff like that. Then next, I got Neil and his daughter. And Neil is a dude that my mom had bought a house from on Livernois. And that's actually when I met Neil, is through him coming to have drinks with my stepdad. That's when I first met him. And I might have seen him in the neighborhood before we actually bought that house, because we used to live on Otis and Livernois. But when I really met him, and I liked him because he just had a good spirit about him, and a good energy and stuff like that. And but what he did, he always drunk. He would always buy a Pepsi, and then he would dump like 3/4 of the Pepsi out, and then he would fill it up with 7 Crowns. And that's what he drinks, And but he was a drinker, and he worked for Ford Motor Company, and and then like I said, he sold that house to my mom, and we was actually living there. My mom bought that house from him, but that's when I had first met him. And then over years, as time went on, and I started going to Cozy Co's bar, and he ended up being a regular, which he probably was already a regular at Cozy Co's bar, but he ended up being a regular there. I seen him in there all the time. We had drinks together. One time he had his daughter with him, and I spent time with him, drink, talk. Me and her danced together. And later on down the line, she ended up hooking up with my friend Bobby Garzel. And they ended up having kids and stuff like that. And but these were real good people, good friends. And and like I said, Neil, he was always. There wasn't too many times I went in Cozy Co's bar and Neil wouldn't be there. You know what I mean? And Toots was the barmaid for a long time, and I'm still in contact with her. And she lets me know what's what. Stuff like that. And so she's a real good person too. She just became a friend too. Because once you hang out at a place so long, you end up making friends and stuff like that. Whether they be the barmaid, the owner, or whatever, you're just gonna click after so long. Just being around so much, and but Neil was a good guy, and he did tell me some stories about when he, like I said, he liked to drink, and he drunk the liquor and the, soda and stuff like that. And I don't even know. He might have drunk beer, but most of the time I see him drinking liquor. But anyways, he might have had a few beers with me, but from what I know of him, he liked to drink liquor a lot. And but anyways, he was telling me this one story and stuff. He was like, he worked for Ford Motor Company for many years, and his dad did too before his dad retired. But he was telling me a story in a bar one time. He said the Ford Motor Company, they sent him to rehab for drinking, and he said he went to this, they sent him to this real nice place, and he said it was like, he said basically it was like a vacation and stuff like that. It was just so nice, while he was there and stuff like that. And I think he said he went there a couple times. So he really liked to drink, stuff like that. And but he was a real friendly person and stuff like that. And I don't know if like I said, I just met him when my mom bought the house from him. But I do know that the whole time I knew him, his wife had passed away, and I don't know from what. And but it was before I met him. Actually, I do believe. And so from that point on, I haven't. I didn't see him, hook up with nobody else. So, I don't know, if that had anything to do with the way he drank. You know what I mean? Because sometimes that does have a problem. Have a effect on people, and by drinking, some people drink to cope with their loss and stuff like that. I don't know if that's the case, but I do know that she had passed away, and he had a lot of friends and stuff like that. But I never seen him, hook up with another lady or nothing. And but he was a real good dude. His daughter, she was a wonderful person. She had a glow, like. And my friend can tell you this too, if he was ever talking about her or whatever, but she had a glow to her in her face that she was just a special kind of person. You know what I mean? And it's, sometimes, good people have to end up going. And the way I feel, like everybody has a certain number, when it's your time to go, you're going to go regardless of what caused your demise or whatever. And, but if it ain't your time to go, you're going to be all right. You're going to heal up and you're going to be okay. That's just a strong feeling that I got that, that's what it is, But could I be wrong? Maybe, but that's just the way I see things, But she's a real sweet person, and luckily my friend Bobby Garzo, he hooked up with her and they had kids. But so these people are well missed, and like I said, I can't say enough about these people. They just, they're all good folks. They're my friends, my sisters, my brothers, all that. You know what I mean? And it's just us. And this is just a handful. I got many, many more, but this is just a handful of them. And it's a shame that you could lose that many people in your time, but you know, it's just part of life. You know what I mean? And it's something you just got to deal with. But one thing that helps me is I tend to talk about my friends, even though they're passed away or whatever. I tend to talk about them, things that we did, remembering, and I'm sharing it with you all because this is my channel, this is my life story, and you can see from what I'm doing right here that no doubt, I ain't never forgotten none of my friends, or none of my brothers, none of my sisters, none of that, and occasionally I bring them up, I talk about them, I talk about things that we did, things like that, and maybe it's just my way of just remembering them and coping with the situation that they're not here no more. But like I said, these were all good people, and they're well missed, and I can't say enough good things about them, and like I said, this channel is my story, and you're just going to hear a whole lot of my life story, whether it be, people I knew or whatever. You're just going to hear, it's going to be an open book. It's just going to be, the story of my life. And I like to do this also to leave behind this, because this will always be on the internet. So when I'm gone, which would be at 115 years old, when I'm gone, a lot of people, even your family, because your family knows some about you, but they don't know everything about you because everybody's doing their own thing, But people, if they'll wonder, well, what do you like to do? Where'd he go? Who'd he hang out with? Who was his friends? Stuff like that. All you got to do is get on YouTube and punch in Detroit's Darkest Times, and you'll have the whole book, open book, and it's 100% of my story, and it's just my way of sharing good people, good friends, good brothers, good sisters that's no longer here, and just keep them going, So, people would know about these people that they didn't know, maybe some story. Now, later on, I might do videos where it's just talking about each specific person on each video, and just, let you know everything that we had shared together and done together. And it's just interesting stories from, A to Z, But that being said, I'm going to leave y'all with this. And I miss all my friends dearly, the ones who's already passed. And, they're not forgotten. And I suggest, if you got lost friends or lost family members or whatever, I suggest that, always bring up their names, always bring up stories, that y'all shared together, whatever, and it would just make you feel a lot better, you know. You know. So that being said, don't forget about your lost ones. Always remember them. Always speak their name into an existence, and they'll be looking over you, being proud that you did not forget about them over time. So that being said, I'm gonna leave y'all with that. Also, subscribe, hit the like, the notification bell, be a part of this channel, support this channel, and many stories to come. We appreciate you listening, and may God be with you.